Yo, YouTube, J20 here, and today we're going to be talking about philosophy, a subject so complex yet so exciting and so fun to talk about. That's partially why I chose to do human science at school, because that curriculum has 2 hours of philosophy. One problem, though, with talking about philosophy is the fact that it's very complicated and it's very large and a very extensive topic. That's why I decided to let my friend, Gia, pick one random school of philosophy from the tab of schools of philosophy on Wikipedia to make a video about. And he chose British idealism. So let's get into it. British idealism is a philosophy that originated in Great Britain, who would have guessed, then known as the British Empire. It was a major school in philosophy from the mid 19th century all the way through the beginning of the 20th century. It had 2 generations of thinkers who identified themselves as British idealism. The first generation, represented by Thomas Greenhill, Francis Barnley, and the second generation has the names of John McTaggart, Joachim, and Muir as their most well known thinkers. As stated before, British idealism originated in the mid 19th century, where it largely originated from German idealism, which is pioneered by the great thinkers from the Enlightenment such as Immanuel Kant and Hegel. This German influence is most prominent in the works of Barney, where traces of dialectic, which is a way of writing with a specific aim to overcome all eternal contradictions, were found. But not all philosophers of this school saw it this way. Most of them saw British idealism as a reaction of the British empirism at that time, and didn't recognize the influence of the Germans. British idealism largely existed of 3 main ideas. The first one and the biggest one being a universal reality. Now, this is where German influence once again shows its face, as this looks mighty similar to the coercion theory of the truth by Hegel, in which Hegel states that science, religion, and art cannot be separated from each other, as they are connected via various ways. The Britons, however, they go further. They say that everything in this world is connected, and that all those connections, and thus everything in this world, rest upon this universal reality. They also state that it's their obligation and their duty to study this reality. They also state that whenever someone says this is not true, they state, please, sir, allow me to explain. You think differently because every philosophy is in some way or some form a different perception from this reality. I can do this as well. I can also go to people who disagree with me and say, "Oh, we're saying the same thing. I'm just saying completely different and thus better than you." Now, they believed in another thing called dilotomy. And dilotomy is when they believe that the mind and the objects in this world are strongly connected. AKA, they believe in the force, but without the cool tricks, movements, and mind tricks. And last but not least, they were against the individualism from, among others, the works of Herbert Spencer. They believed that humans are a social creature and that they need a group to survive. However, this group should never be structured as a state and never be so organized as a state. But what they did say about a state, and what American pragmatists also said about the state, was that scientists should be included in political debates because their opinion could, for some reason, be better than what politics could state about any political problem. British idealism saw its decline and eventual ending at the beginning of the 20th century, mostly at the hands of Russell and Moore, whom were both educated in this way of thought, but decided that
Not the Jedi way. You must live.
it was ultimately their biggest and boldest idea that gave rise to the downfall of this British idealism, the unified reality. As Moore stated that the British idealist had an obligation to give and provide some evidence for this reality, as it went against daily common sense. But more importantly, it went against the logic laws of Leibniz, which stated that relations and identities are different. The exact opposite, thus, of what the British said. And all was lost when the British philosophy sphere once again turned against metaphysica, and after it, nobody returned to British idealism. Even better, people who said some pretty idealist shit, like for example Collingwood or Oxford, explicitly stated they did not want to be recognized as British idealists. British idealism saw it soar in popularity all across the British Empire and the world at large, from the USA to India to Australia to New Zealand to London itself. But sadly, it too, like many philosophies in the 20th century, had to make way for science and analytic philosophy. Now, the only thing we have left to show for this rich, vibrant, and interesting part of philosophical history is a very nice and interesting Wikipedia page, translated in 11 languages. So yeah, guys, that was a fun little mini documentary. But of course, this channel is still named Joe's Second Opinion for a reason. For me to give you my opinion, so you, Joe, have a second opinion. And my opinion is a bit complicated for the most part because I have never actually heard of British idealism, so I actually just could needed to come up with this opinion out of the blue. Yet still, here we are. So let's go over this. British idealism, a not so long lasting philosophy, only lasting for half a century, the middle of the 19th to the end of the 20th century, with some pretty weird and wacky shit to believe in. Now, I personally liked to learn about the school, and it's mostly the ideas we need to talk about. The three main ideas, and the biggest idea is the one that also I disagree with, just like Moore and Russell did, but also just like Leibniz would have done if he lived at this time. The idea of one unified reality first seems pretty logical, but the more you think about it and the more you read into it, you start to see that this is something pretty weird to state. As a unified a reality means that everyone should experience the same. I can tell you from my personal experience that I do not live and feel and see the same as my colleagues or my mother, even. And that's partially why I think this idea is a bit weird. Now, to give you another idea, which I could say about reality, is that everybody has a personal reality, and that this reality is inside of one unified reality. That's the way you could make a unified reality work. Because the Earth, something everybody sees, is one unified reality thing. But not everybody experience the same world. Not everybody has the same reality about the world. So you could say that a personal reality exists within this unified and great reality. For example, if you are an alien, you will not observe our world as we do. We call it our home. They call it a colony, ready to be taken. Now, the other idea, the dilotomy, the moving shit and mind and object thing, personally is very weird because if I look to an item, for example, my bottle of spa water, which is a popular water brand in Belgium, I don't feel any connection with my mind and this object. I don't see what they're trying to prove or state here because if I think about objects, I don't feel anything special, or if I throw an object away, I don't even either. Here's a proof. I threw it in my garbage can and I didn't get a seizure. Now, I also cannot disprove this theory as I am not enabled to disprove anything of a connection. This is a fun part about philosophy. You can't disprove what other people are saying, but you can disagree with them and then give a reason why, and try to give another theory on what should then be the truth. Now, the last thing that they stated of the group. I personally feel this strongly, and this is one I actually agree with. I think people are indeed, and humans are indeed, a social creature, and that we need some kind of group to survive. We don't need a big group. A family of two might be enough if you can be content with one other person for the rest of your life. But I do think that people are social creatures who need each other. Also, Very simply put and very nicely stated, the politics part that they talk about, which also was something American pragmatists talked about, I strongly disagree with. I do not think that scientists should be included in political debates because scientists have only regards to the further and the betterment of science. Well, politics should all be about the betterment of people's lives and the betterment of the way states work. Scientists cannot say anything about this. If a question ever is asked, should you be able to test on humans? Some scientists might say yes. All politicians should say no, because testing on humans is unethical. But scientists, the way scientists are defined, should say yes, because the furtherment and the betterment of science depends on how good we can test things. And instead of testing it on 500 different animals and hoping it would work the same on humans, we could test this on humans instead. Testing on humans, by the way, is very weird. I don't agree with it. You should never do it. Should have never happened, but okay. And that's something I also strongly disagree with. Now, the reason for the downfall of the British idealism also seems to be just an accident, basically, because it seemed to be, to me, when I read into this, a very accidental thing. Um, People just stopped being interested in metaphysica, and after that, nihilism took over, and science became more prominent. Just like the evolution theory, the theory of molecules became a thing, and so these unified realities and these mind reality theories just became less and less prominent. But yeah, I want to thank you for watching this mini documentary I created. It's cost a lot of time, and I want to thank you all for watching this video until the end. So then I would, on British idealism, if you want more of this, or you want to see me in other videos, bit different genre, then please like and subscribe. But that's all for us today, and I would like to say J20 out.